What's up fellow hunters, Nox here, welcome to another exciting build video. Today we're going to talk about Endgame Longsword. We have 3 incredibly strong builds that you can choose from. One thing to note is that the best builds for Elemental Longsword are actually the ones from the Title Update 5 video. So if you haven't seen those yet, definitely check them out after this video. With that out of the way, let's jump into the builds. We're going to start with the easiest one to make. The Raging Tiger, a true raw damage build with incredibly high damage output and great customizability. For this one, I'm using a Critical Eye level 3 talisman with 3 level 2 slots. 2 level 2 slots would already be enough though, and you can easily get that with the Cyclops Melding now. Weapon of choice is the Tigrex Longsword. A huge 410 attack, purple sharpness, and minus 15% affinity. To increase our damage, the first thing we have is a max affinity setup. Critical Eye, Weakness Exploit, and Bloodlust will set us at 100% affinity on weak spots even though the weapon has negative affinity. Along with that, we of course have Critical Boost to get the most out of our critical hits. Then we have Max Attack Boost for a big increase to raw attack. Same thing goes for Mail of Hellfire on the red scroll. This will give us another 15 to 35 attack depending on the level of the skill. Next is one of the core skills of the build, Froscraft. This will increase damage by 5 to 30% depending on the charge level of the gauge. That is a massive amount of extra damage. The gauge decreases when landing attacks but recharges very fast when the weapon is sheathed. The gauge will of course also recharge when using the special or sacred sheath with the longsword. In case you don't want to use Froscraft at all for any reason, you can switch out the skill very easily. All you have to do is replace the Valkana chest with either the Risen Teostra or Amatsu one. You will lose a bit of damage when not using Frostcraft, but these two pieces are good alternatives that have their own benefits. Maxed out Quick Sheath greatly increases overall DPS on Longsword and will of course be on every build. All builds will also come with the combination of Wirebug Whisperer level 3 and Windmantle level 1 or higher. This will increase Wirebug recovery speed, which adds extra smoothness and DPS to Longsword. Another skill that we're going to see on all builds is Frenzied Bloodlust. This will give us an additional Wirebug when overcoming the effect of Frenzy. How long we get to keep that Wirebug will depend on the level of the skill. Combined with the 2 previous skills, this will give you a huge amount of freedom when it comes to Silk Bind attacks. For sharpness management, we have Master's Touch, giving us an 80% chance to not lose sharpness when landing critical hits. We also have 1 level of Blood Awakening, which will give us a bonus of 10 raw attack. In order to activate this, we have to regenerate HP by landing attacks. This will happen automatically since we have Blood Rite in the build for health regeneration. Aside from all that, we have Intrepid Heart and Shock Absorber for added comfort and safety, as well as Powder Mantle, Coalescence, and Burst for a nice bit of extra damage. Burst is actually not that important here, so you can replace the Chain 2 decoration with anything else you might like. This build is the perfect grab and go option that works on anything. Here's what my augments are looking like if you're trying to recreate a similar version of the build. Right underneath where it says Augmentation Status, you can see which augmenting method I used. The first thing you want to do is get 2 levels of Frostcraft. Mine are on the waist and legs. You can actually make this a bit easier by using the skill plus augmenting method on the legs if you want. The only other requirement is a slot upgrade on the helmet. The Wind Mantle that came along with mine is just a nice bonus but absolutely not required. The Powder Mantle and Mail of Hellfire are completely optional as well. You have the freedom to choose what you like here. Next, we have the 2 ultimate DPS endgame builds, starting with the Silent Pain. To get all the essential skills, we need a talisman with either 2 levels of Frostcraft or 2 levels of Buildup boost. If it has 1 level 2 slot, that is already enough. I'm using a Frostcraft level 3 talisman because I happen to have one. You can actually make this build with a Critical Eye level 3 talisman as well. In that case, you will of course have to get Frostcraft with augments later on if you want to use that skill. Weapon of choice is the Lucent Nargacuga Longsword. 385 attack, purple sharpness, 14 poison, and great slots. Our main damage essentials are the same as for the previous build. We have a max affinity setup combined with critical boost, Frostcraft, and a bunch of skills that increase raw damage. As I mentioned, Quick Sheath, Wirebug Whisperer, Wind Mantle, and Frenzied Bloodlust will be here as well. The value of those 4 skills is way too high to leave them out of any longsword build. Now we get to the big differences on this build. Since we're using a status weapon, we of course have Buildup boost. This will increase raw damage by 10, 15, or 20% if the attack applies status. That is a massive DPS boost. Next, we have the combination of Chameleos Blessing level 3 and Foray level 1. At level 3, Chameleos Blessing will double the amount of time a monster stays poisoned, and Foray level 1 will give us a 10 attack bonus as long as a monster is poisoned, which of course means these two skills have great synergy. The monster stays poisoned for longer, which means it takes more damage by default. And of course, the uptime on Foray gets doubled along with it. Along with Master's Touch, this build also has Heaven Sent level 1, making it very easy to keep the purple sharpness from running out. Whenever the skill is active, you can swap scrolls to immediately restore 50 hits of sharpness if needed. Aside from that, we have the same bonus skills as before. Intrepid Heart and Bloodrite for extra comfort, as well as Powder Mantle and Coalescence for extra damage. The Evade Extender is just a personal choice, and we'll get to that in a moment. As a second weapon option, you can also use the Gold Rathian Longsword. It will do slightly less damage since it doesn't have purple sharpness, but in return it has much higher poison and the sharpness is very easy to maintain. If you're still a bit newer to Longsword, this might be the better option for you. Let's take a look at the augments. The essentials here are 2 levels of build-up boost and a level 1 slot upgrade on the legs. That level 1 slot is important so you can add Intrepid Heart into the build. Otherwise, you will have to drop Chameleos Blessing below level 3, at which point it becomes completely useless. Everything else is gonna be up to your personal preference. Depending on your talisman, you might have to add some Froscraft if you want to use that skill. Next, we have the Doombringer. This one is my personal favorite for high level endgame content. The super high damage plus the additional stopping force that comes with Blast make this incredibly good for anomaly investigations. For the talisman, you can again use anything with 2 levels of Frostcraft or Buildup boost. Weapon of choice is the Seething Basil Longsword. 400 attack, purple sharpness, 32 blast and minus 10% affinity. The main damage skills are the exact same as for the previous build. A max affinity setup with critical boost, a big stack of raw damage increasing skills, and all of the longsword essentials. The difference here is that we have Blood Awakening level 1 like the first build, giving us access to the 10 attack bonus when regenerating HP with attacks. Along with that, this build also comes with Defiance level 3, which means that monsters will not be able to roar you out of the air. That is going to be super useful if you like using the soaring kick. The reason why I often choose Blast over Poison when fighting afflicted monsters is because it has one specific advantage. Blast is counted as physical damage on the monster, which means it counts towards breaking the monster out of its afflicted state. While Poison is still very good, it cannot do that. So Blast is a great choice if you're helping someone out who might be struggling with a fight. Our second weapon option is actually a special mention that often gets overlooked, the Machina Longsword. It doesn't fall far behind in terms of damage, it has really nice sharpness and sleep status. It's a really fun weapon to mess around with and it definitely keeps things interesting. Good news, the augments are the exact same as for the previous build aside from the arms, meaning that you basically get 2 builds in one. All you have to do is get 1 level of build-up boost onto the arms since we're using a different piece here. Everything else is entirely up to you and can remain the same as before. Here's a quick look at the switch skills I'm using. All of these are up to your personal preference. The only thing I recommend never changing is the drawn double slash in the first spot. This one is simply better than the other option. Skill number 3 and 4 I often swap around between the 2 scrolls. Just use whatever works best for you. There's no particular setup that you have to use. Like I mentioned at the start, if you're looking for the best elemental longsword builds, check out this video right here. Thanks for watching, take it easy, and I'll see you in the next one.